everybody, it's Heather with the Leadership the Heart podcast. And today it's hump day for me. So it's a Wednesday and I'm super excited to have Jahanzaib Ansari. And he's on here. I actually got referred to him by the person who is my producer of the show. And he has done, oh my gosh, he has done at least 3,000 interviews. He has a daily podcast. And so I was telling my guest that he is actually the first person that was referred to me out of all those thousands and thousands of interviews by my producer. He was the first referred to me because it was like, oh my gosh, you've got to talk to Heather. She's the culture, engagement, leadership person. You have to talk to her. So that's why you're here.
Awesome. No, well, thank you so much for having me on the show. And, it's excited, heard a lot of great things and, just excited to be able to hopefully add value here.
Oh, I'm sure you will. So, okay, tell everybody, where are you in your leadership journey anyway?
Yeah. So I think at the moment I'm going through an extremely transformative phase, I think, as a CEO of a fast growing technology startup. And so, we started off from like scratch a couple of years ago where we were just a handful of employees. And now obviously, I have a ton of like direct reports that are reporting up into me. We've raised like several $1 million, and we're working with large organizations now. And I think just sort of like moving away from the day-to-day grind, and stepping back a little bit and letting leadership that you've hired actually overtake some of the job functions that you've been doing is where I'm currently at. So it's a transformative sort of phase for myself, from like going from a pretty much like a street hustler to like a manager, which is very different for me.
Totally different. I know exactly what you're talking about. I was like right before the pandemic, I was a solopreneur that had a couple of contractors helping me, and we're still small. So now we have a couple of employees, team members, and even more contractors helping me. And so it's just growing, it's that same thing as scaling. And it's relieving, but then it's kind of nerve-wracking, and it's all of the things at one time, and you're just like, you're changing, they're growing, you need them to grow. Oh, right. Isn't it just kind of mind-boggling?
Absolutely. And my philosophy is that, if you're going to bring in some talent that you feel, I should backtrack a little bit. My whole philosophy is that if you want to bring in talent in your organization who's going to take over some of your job functions, they better be a lot better than you, pretty much. Like, you should never be the smartest person in the room, and you should let them start to run the show then. And I think just accepting that and transitioning into that was a bit of a challenge, even for myself. Somebody with that philosophy, who says, let's bring in leaders, and let's bring in somebody who's an expert in a specific space, and let's let them run the show. So it's ever changing for myself.
It is. So I'm curious to know, where does your drive to lead come from? Where did it come from for you? Like, be the CEO of this company that's like scaling tech company. Like, where did that drive to lead come from?
Yeah. So I think in my case, it was slightly different. The way we essentially started Knockri, which is the name of our company, is because I was applying to jobs, and you guys all probably see I have a long ethnic name, which is Jahanzaib Ansari. And so I wouldn't hear back from a lot of employers. And so my co-founder Maz is like, why don't you just anglicize your name? And we went from a variation of Jordan, Jacob, Jason, and literally in 4 to 6 weeks, I got a job from the same people that had overlooked me. And so with that experience, we just felt like, oh man, there's so many people in this world that are probably extremely qualified and are being overlooked, and that there has to be a better solution. And so this mission that we went on is the real drive of what makes me get up on a daily basis, is building out a technology that is essentially trying to create fair and equal opportunity to anybody applying to the job, and just that's where I get the drive from now.
Yeah, Neil was right to connect us. I mean, it's just like that guy is so dang brilliant. I'm sure you already picked up on that. Somebody brought you in here. So right. There's just a lot of alignment with the work I do and what you're talking about. And I love the fact that you found a mission in it, because, often with tech companies, they don't consider themselves mission driven, really. I mean, it's not. It's like, how can we get the MRR the fastest we can if they're a monthly recurring revenue type of business? It's all these things. That's the stuff they're looking at. They're not looking at like, what's our mission, and let's stay on focus with our mission, on target with our mission, and everything we do should point to our mission. Like, they're not doing that. So the fact that you have that as something, as a CEO of the organization, to have that as your focus is pretty impressive.
Now, and thank you for that. And our goal, is like money. I mean, money only like takes you so far, right? And don't get me wrong, like money's great. If it wasn't like for that, I might have like been at a charity. However, it only takes you so far. And that day to day, like, you making an impact on a day in, like day out basis is so important. And so, our like North Star, instead of like a revenue target, is instead, we want to make sure that we can get 100 million people like screened and given a fair opportunity at a job that they might be applying it, right? Like, because this is just so like prevalent. Like, for example, in my case, it was the name. For some other person, it could be their like gender, like their race, their sexuality. Like, it could be a like a multitude of things. And I think it's just like, we just love the fact that, we haven't like started a company and then had to find a mission. We started from the ground up, like with a mission. So, and it's been extremely like rewarding for us from that sense.
Oh, I love that. So I'm curious to know what the folks that, let's say a few years ago when you said like a few people and then you scale, like what would people say about your leadership style? How would they define you and describe you?
So my leadership style is very this is a very I love this question, by the way. I am a very, I would say, like black and white leader, in the sense that like I was, when I had initially started off, right, like for me it was like do or die. That's like my thing, right? Because like running a startup, the statistically, like when you take a look at it, 95 or 98% of startups end up failing. To even go from ideation to like prototype to go to market, there are so many companies that you never hear about because they all die. So for me, I was living sort of life as if it's my last day every single day, and trying to just grind the hardest, like work the hardest I possibly could on a day-to-day basis. But what that does is that it, you like become extremely like militaristic, extremely extremely dominating, I would say, as a leader. And then obviously you're unfortunately like fueled by a lot of stress and anxiety as well, right? So I would say, sort of coupled like all of that up, it's not I would say, like when I started off, it's not the best leadership method, and I've learned quite a lot from that. However, I feel that discipline is a key like predictor. I would say so 100%, but it's got to be like well balanced. And I think that's where I am I'd say currently.
Okay. So then I'm curious then, based upon that, is there ever a time that you can think of, share a story with us when, you were not the best leader, maybe your hard edge, your kind of desire to drive was taking over, and you weren't considering kind of the people in the business, making sure that you were bringing them along, and some kind of story as it relates to that you can think of. And then what did you do to come out of that? How did that turn out? And what did you do from a problem solving perspective to come out of that?
Yeah. So I think, I've had this several times, but a couple of times has like happened when it comes to like closing deals or just like sales in general, right? Because I'm off the notion, as I was saying, I like followed this one Navy general, and just to build some context, like, 400 or 500 years ago, when somebody had to win a war, they had to take over like an island, like back in those days, right? So a lot of the armies would just come to an island. They would burn their own boats, so they have like no option of even going back. So if they did not achieve that objective, they would die. And if you put somebody in that situation, their chances of like success like become a lot higher because they're afraid of just dying, right? So that was my like mentality towards everything, even as it comes to sales. But sometimes what I've learned is that not everything is in your control. And I would get extremely frustrated with, stuff like my sales reps, or I'd get extremely like frustrated like with my co-founders as to like, like, why aren't you guys like putting in the amount of work that I would potentially, or like, you guys, like the team knows that this is a like do or die scenario. But then I think really like learning how like multifaceted organizations are, how multivariant like conversations can actually be, and that like not everything is actually in your control. And so like really becoming empathetic to that by just speaking to other sales leaders, other co-founders, or other CEOs of organizations, and just solely focusing, then shifting your focus on what you can control and not like worrying about what you cannot control. Because I was, like ridden with stress and anxiety, and I said, I want to control this whole situation and I want to get this win, but that's not the reality. And so when I pulled back, I sort of realized, oh, like these are the 5 or 6 things I can leverage. So let's go and like control those. And then if the outcome happens, we'll get the result out of it. So that has been quite a learning experience for me, which I'm still learning from. I still sometimes have a lot of challenges with that. I'm not going to lie, but that is one example that I think is something I've really grown from.
Well, it's interesting. People who have long-time listeners of the show know that I talk about this is not a road to perfection, or it's a road to continuous improvement for us to grow and get better every day. It's a journey that we're on. It's not linear. It's an up and down type of thing. It's worth it, but it's not for the faint of heart. Leading others, leading organizations, leading people responsible for their lives. It's not for the faint of heart. Not everybody can do it. It's not for everyone. And that's okay. And we're going to have that struggle, right? Where it's just like you're feeling yourself being tugged between, I got to control this thing, I got to have this end result, and then I have to also manage these people and lead them so that they're not feeling so pushed and squashed that they're going to leave. Because now I'm like having to replace people, and that's a big pain, and the amount of money for training. I mean, just all the things that go into it. It's not a smart move. But yeah, we all keep growing and sometimes we keep growing from the same dang thing. We're like, is there a reason why I'm not learning here? Why am I not learning here? Right.
Now, that's a great point, actually. And I want to just sort of like touch back on like what you said here. I think you said 2 like great things in that. One is obviously it's not for everybody, but number 2 is that like it's a journey, right? And it's a marathon. And so like I think treating it, and I've been a victim of this, or I'm very like guilty of just like treating it as a sprint, just continuously for the last couple of years, just treating it like a sprint. And for you to be at an extremely high peak performance, it's got to be like a marathon, and you cannot, you need to be able to sustain your hustle over a long period of time, instead of going in a quick and short sprint and then like burn out and then do something and then burn out again and then go through this treacherous cycle. And obviously when you talk about like and when you talk about like faint of heart, when I see extremely high like performing leaders, I mean, these are folks that are trying to compete to be at the top of the top. And, similar to like an Olympic athlete, or similar to like a basketball player or a like football player, they have, um, a like weight training coach. They have a like mental health therapist. They might have an executive coach as well, right? So, but like what I'm saying is that it's important to know that as a leader, you have to like tap into all these like resources if you want to reach the top, because obviously it's not easy and it's not for everybody.
Yeah, and you can't do it alone. I've been in a search, me personally, I've been in a search for a specific type of coach. And there's like a zillion coaches, but a specific type that's going to fit the need of the thing I'm looking for the next 5 years as an entrepreneur, and looking at like, okay, 5 years down the road, this is where I want to be. And it's not easy to find, you don't just want to get anybody, because are they going to add value? We're already, how I look at it as an entrepreneur, we're already we're pretty intelligent to the extent that we know our business. We have like this vision. And so we need someone to help with like the strategy. And sometimes it is the tactics, but we're painting it, and we know so much, but we don't know everything, which is why we need the people there to help, right? We have to have that group of people. And so I end up getting like informal coaches, why I'm looking for the one, which I think I'm getting close on. So, but it's like, what do I need today? And then what I found too, is what you need like for this quarter or this like time of year, right, is different. And so you might have to have multiple support systems in place in order to help you, right? Because like you just had that big round of funding. I don't know if when it happened, whatever, but you just did that. Now all of a sudden, now there's a whole nother need of a different type of coach or, guidance person. And then after you do that, you're going to need another different type, because what you got here is not going to get you there. And it's just, it's
No,
a wish wash.
no, that's a great point. I was going to say is that like what gets you to like a certain level is not going to be the same advice and the same strategy that's going to take you to the next level that you might be aspiring to go to. So that's a good point as well. And like, I'm in the market for the same thing as well. It's like, how can we take it to the next level? And let's keep going at it. This is a lot of, there's just so much more to do there, and it's just exciting times again. Like as sort of COVID is slowly, normalizing, and we're all sort of meeting up in person, which is great now, which I was really like looking forward to. There's just, life is back again now, and I'm just excited to live life again.
Okay. So now this is kind of the fun part. Now you as the guest,
Yeah.
you get to turn the tables on me and ask me a question. Any question, you can ask me a question. I'll answer it. And what's in your mind? What do you think you might want to ask me?
What keeps you going? Because I think this is like something I just like love to learn from other founders as well, and other entrepreneurs. It is like, what gets you up in the morning, and how do you tackle like yourself on those like gray, dark days when everything is going wrong? Like, how do you keep yourself going on those days?
That's interesting. Yeah. I think the thing that gets me up is I create a certain level of structure around chaos. So I have a certain cadence that I do. I didn't get to do it this morning because I had an early morning keynote, but I'm going to be doing it later this afternoon. I'm not going to skip it, but I kind of get up, come down to my basement, work out. I go up, I have a certain breakfast I eat. It's just kind of funny. I kind of start my day at a certain point, and I have pushed my day out. So I have the structure in the midst of the chaos. The chaos really is still controlled, but it's because I'm doing what I love. I feel I'm doing my calling. I'm in the space. My company's in the space where you're calling. My people are aligned with that. And so I just feel like there's so much impact, even if it's like one person at a time, one leader at a time, one organization at a time. So I think it's just it's knowing the mission's there, that we're meeting the mission, even if it's one step at a time, and then having structure in controlled chaos is, I think, the thing that helps me. And then I think the other thing is kind of alluding to that second point, which is I really do stuff in time for me. So I have to, when we're founders, when we're like this, we're just like, and it's like, oh my gosh. Right. So it's like, okay, wait, got to go for a walk, or yep, got to do this. So I start my day off focusing on me, even though I have 4 kids. So I focus on me first. then the day goes on, and then I have to figure out, is there something at the end of the day that's also allowing me to grow me, whatever that is, in the middle of the day, the end of the day. Usually it's not in the middle of the day because I'm just like hammering it. And then it's mostly the end of the day where I'm like, oh, I get to listen to an audiobook, or I'm going to go for a walk with my dog or something like that. So those would be
Nice.
the things I think. That's how I get through it.
That's awesome. No, really, that's really awesome. I think I got to get better at that. With just, more than the gym, because that's been my life now. But excited that the gym's back open now, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
that's been my life at the moment.
That's awesome though. Okay. So for those who are listening, who are like, I think they probably have already been inspired by this conversation, but if they need some motivation, some oomph to get through the day, there's some people who might be entrepreneurs, some people who are just managers in an office that work for someone else, but they need a little extra oomph to get through the week. What might be a couple pearls of wisdom you'd offer them as in this leadership of the heart space?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen so many ups and downs running a startup. It's a roller coaster of emotions, and I think when I look back at it, everything gets better. You just have to stay like consistent. So yeah, like there are going to be some days like where everything is going to go south, and you don't want to wake up, and it's raining or it's snowing and it's cold outside. But just know that tomorrow is going to be another day, and things are going to improve. It's going to get better. It's going to happen for you. Just have that belief that like it's going to happen for you, like whatever that dream is, because it does happen as long as you stay consistent. So I would just leave it at that.
That's awesome. Okay, so for those who are listening who found great value in listening to my conversation with Jahanzaib, just go ahead and share this far and wide. And also don't forget to write the Apple podcast, if that's where you listen, the review. It helps the algorithms. We are moving up in the management podcast, leadership podcast space, but it'd be nice to just continue to get that. So, oh, thanks so much for joining me. This has been great. I'm so glad Neil connected us.
Great. Thank you for having me. This was amazing.
And thanks everybody for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. Be well.